Well, if you start with party tricks like mixing magic with tech, I guess your universe must be doomed. This is the review of champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. Roll here. Voice only, we have Lokismom. How are you?
We're doing real good. Super, actually.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll do that later. Lord Deathman, voice only also. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
On camera, the original, Mr. Taylor first. How are you, man?
I'm great.
And last, certainly not least, and back after a while, Merv. How are you, man?
Fantastic.
That's good to hear. Today we're going to talk about episode 4, 5, and 6 of Ironheart. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our forum at sakar.freeforums.net. Set up an account, get to know us, and you know how you can set up an account. Just click on the link in the description. You can even join us in our reviews or podcasts. We would love it if you do that. Consider this your final warning. After this point, we are going to talk about these episodes in depth. So if you haven't seen them, do that first and then check out our review. Well, Ironheart, where we left off, Riri, things went from bad to worse, I guess. Merv, Ironheart, quick thoughts on episodes 1 to 6, because you didn't join us for the first 3.
Thoughts. Riri is an interesting character with an interesting journey that I kept waiting for it to turn around and her to become the hero that we all expected, and then she didn't. And things just kept going from bad to worse to even more worse to, basically life ruining. So Ironheart's an interesting journey of a character for Riri Williams. But it's not necessarily a good tasting one, if that makes sense.
Okay, interesting. Hope to find out more later. Lokismom, episode 4, 5, 6 of Ironheart. When did you see them? Do you still remember them?
Actually, yes, I did, but unfortunately, I did not see episode 6. I thought we were only doing 2 episodes. I guess I didn't get the email. However, I'll roll with it. Yeah, I think it's pretty much on pace with what it has been. I said last week or 2 weeks ago that it was kind of the first episode was just yeah, and then it built over that, and I think it maintained the same pace that it had for episodes. Uh, what is it? Episodes 5 and
1, 2? Yeah.
4 and
4 and
5.
5.
4 and 5.
Yeah.
Get my numbers straight going here. And I think I kind of know what the 6th episode what happens because I kind of read a little ahead of it, and so I know who the villain at the end is. It's not who we thought it was, but anyway. Um, Other than that, I think it kind of kept also doing a lot of that same kind of meandering, getting caught up in these long scenes that kind of took up, I think, a little too much space, and they could have had more action and whatnot. But I did love the transformation that Zeke made. I mean, they shaved. He looked totally different when they shaved his head, and supersized him and super soldiered him and whatnot. So, and that whole scene where they're directing into Hood's, come to find out his father. I mean, dun 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 type moment that we find out Zeke, the Hood's past, as it were, what's motivating him. There again, I think that was just a little ham-fisted. We didn't really have a clue that that's who that was, and I think they kind of sprung it on us. But otherwise, I'm not going to complain about the series that much. I've enjoyed it so far, and I'll certainly catch up on episode 6 after today.
So, in conclusion, this show could have been an email. Taylor, what did you think of episode 4, 5, and 6 of Ironheart?
I'm of mixed feelings about the show. first of all, it's normal for TV series to have different directors for different episodes, but episode 4 almost felt like a different show altogether from the first three. And there's a lot of good things in this show. There are a lot of things I really liked about this show, but then there's a lot of really head scratching things, and the way they left it um, was really kind of again mind boggling to me. So we'll get
Mhm.
into the details of it, but I'm quite mixed on it overall.
Okay. Lord
Yep.
Deathman, a mixed bag, a bad taste, and an email. Is that the conclusion for you as well?
I'm kind of neutral to positive on the show. So erring a little bit more on the side of positive. I like the blend of science and magic that the show has to offer. I like the way Riri's character kind of constantly gets pushed, to go further and further into this world of superheroics. I thought there was a great introduction and performance from Sacha Baron Cohen as far as Mephisto went, but I don't think that it all came together. So there was just a lot of elements in this stew that they were kind of cooking for episodes 4, 5, and 6, but the payoff doesn't quite land as well as I was hoping it would. But I think that there's a lot to like for the show. And as I've been saying consistently, I think that this is a show where if you're a diehard Marvel fan and you're a completionist, you're going to want to watch it. But if you're just someone who's kind of here for the theatrical experience or you're looking for the big events, and this is kind of minor MCU, and I don't think it's essential watching.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that because it introduces a major villain we have been, well, teasing since, well, 2021, actually. So, well, in that case, in that regard, it feels like kind of major. But okay, I will let you explain later in your deeper dive. Taylor, mixed feelings, you say. I know your comment on the board after you watched those last 3 episodes, and it was a little bit like, "What on earth was this?" And I
Yeah.
tried to say it nicely. Um, that didn't give me the feeling you were totally on board with the show, and your first comments also alluded to that. So let's have it.
Yes, well, that acronym stands for "What the fudge." All right,
Yeah.
that was what I had. um, like I said, episode 4, they went really fast and they did a whole lot of things. They introduced new characters, new concepts. And I'm with Lord Deathman. I liked how they brought in different elements of the Marvel universe, the super science and the magic stuff. I had no problem with that. I, I pretty much liked all the characters in this show, and I liked them all. The acting. Well, I like the acting in this show. There's one exception I'll get to here later, but I like the acting. I like the characters. The production values I thought of the show was really good. The visuals all worked well for me. I didn't have anything that took me out of it or bothered me on that side of the house. But and part of this may be just what Marvel is doing with the character and with the show, and I don't know if they know what they're doing with the character and the show, because they introduced this character and all these sub characters or side characters, and they left it on a humongous cliffhanger, and then they burnt it off in 2 weeks, and no one's mentioned it since. There's no announcement of Riri Williams will return in this or that movie. They've said we're probably going to see Mephisto again. I would hope so. He's a pretty major character in the Marvel lore. But again, where does he fit into our current phase or whatever is going on in Marvel? I mean, where does he fit in? And they can always tell us that later. They don't have to put it all out now. But the finale of this series, and again, no word on a second season or a movie continuation or anything. Left us with she sold her soul to Satan, and she just sucks. you know, she's a criminal who beat up another criminal and then sold her soul to Satan to get her dead friend back, which is not usually something that's recommended. Zombies and all that. Not a good thing. and so this felt like the mid season finale as opposed to the season finale of a show that we don't even know if we're going to get a second season of. It stopped so abruptly. Um, and again, a lot of stuff I liked. I liked the stuff with the Stain. I liked the stuff. Again, I like the characters. I like the side characters. I like the AI with the Natalie and the relationship there, and her personal struggles with grief and losing her friends and losing her stepfather, and all of that stuff. I liked bringing in the magic stuff, the references to uh, Doctor Strange and his world and his universe. I liked that character, the witch girl, who was the daughter of her mother's friend. I thought she was pretty interesting and fun. I liked the villain for the most part, the Hood. Um, Now, I'll bring me to one thing I don't like, and this is just a purely personal thing. You guys know I usually don't care about actors. I don't have any feelings one way or another. I like the way they if they do a good job playing a role, I'm fine. Even if they're a total butthead in their personal life, I don't care. That has nothing to do with me. There is one exception to that, and I don't ask me to explain it, but Sacha Baron Cohen makes me want to puke every time I see the man on screen, and I don't know why. All right, again, just a personal thing, but he just touches a nerve in me for some reason in everything I've ever seen him in. I don't know, maybe it's psychological, but yeah, he's not my first choice to do anything, including empty my trash.
Okay.
So again, just a personal thing. But other than that, all the other casting was great. I liked Riri Williams. I like Dominique Thorne. I thought she did a good job. Um, Ezekiel Stain again. Ironheart, his name is, or whatever his name is.
No.
I always liked
Han
him.
Solo.
Yeah, he's Han Solo. He's very good. I always like him. His performances. I think he's really strong. Now it was again. These last three episodes felt really, really rushed. Where he's out of prison. He's in a chair. He's cyborg. Boom, boom, boom. And he's killing Riri and ripping her armor apart. I'm like, whoa, really? All that just happened, like in like one episode? Yes. And now, and he's being mind controlled by the Hood. And then again with the now they did reveal something that we mentioned about the first three episodes is why was the Hood targeting these companies? It wasn't about environmentalism or any of that crap he was feeding his crew. He was targeting companies that his father owned so that he could get control of them. So I thought that played out actually quite well, that it all made sense. But now we don't know what's going to happen with this character either. They left him on a cliffhanger. And the problem is, okay, that's fine if we had time to follow up on it, but the MCU has so many cliffhangers hanging out there now. When are we ever going to get to it? Is she going to be like, 40 years old by the time we find out whatever happened to Riri Williams? Did her zombie girlfriend get sent back to heaven or what? So I just don't know what they're doing with this show and the characters at this point. And there's a lot of other good stuff going on in the MCU right now, but again, there's just so much stuff that's just hanging out there. And if they're gonna wrap it up with these next three movies that they've announced, I'll be really amazed if they're able to bring it all together, or just gonna leave us hanging for more years on end.
Mm.
But again, the show was watchable. It was entertaining. It just kind of left you hanging, and I'm just worried that we're not going to get a follow up on it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get what you mean. Maybe they will just reboot the whole thing in Secret Wars.
Yeah, who knows?
And then all the cliffhangers are for nothing, but they're also gone then. Loki's mom, you didn't watch episode 6 with the
Mhm.
Mephisto and Sacha Baron Cohen. Do you have any particular feelings about this man?
Oh, the actor, he's not my favorite.
Hmm.
I thought his first Borat was funny, because it was different, but then he kind of drove it in the ground with this, kept going with it. And as far as him as an actor, I mean, I've only seen him maybe there's actually a TV series that came out last year. I can't remember the name of it, but I didn't like him in that because I thought he was miscast. So I sort of see what Taylor's talking about is he's kind of got that Borat, the Ali G character kind of bored into your brain. So when you see him doing a straight role or even a role like this, a fantasy role, it's jarring. So yeah, I sort of see where Taylor's coming from. So don't feel too bad about it.
Okay, no. Any particular negatives about the episodes 4 and 5 you saw, or particular
Yeah,
highlights?
well, yeah, I think it was mentioned that it was all rushed. I mean, like you say, they just added so many. So much of that could have been spread out through the series rather than packing it all toward the end. And of course, it's intriguing to find out that she has sold her. I guess she's to Mephisto, or is is who she sells it to. Is that correct? Not the devil himself, but Mephisto. But
Yes.
okay. Yeah, but even so, that's not good because it's she's going to have to pay for. Her whole thing was that she was going to be reform her character, and then at the very end, she just kind of goes right back into it. So yeah, leaving it like that, if that's how it is, yeah, that's awkward. But like I say, otherwise, that's my biggest negative is just the pacing of the show and how they structured it. But yeah, I agree. I like the actors. I really like Riri, and I hope they bring her back somehow, some way. But we'll see. That's down the road.
Hmm. Okay. Any particular positives?
No, that's it. Like I said, I liked the Zeke. I think he was like very interesting. I would like to see him come back because certainly he plays. His father was a big presence in the beginning of the whole series and sagas and whatnot, and so yeah, to have him come back in some way would be, I think, a callback to the earlier days, as it were. And I like stuff like that when they bring either not the characters themselves, but at least some element of the characters back, just as a reminder. I would say that's probably the biggest positive. I did like the suit that she. What was that? What car was that? A Pontiac or a GT? I can't remember what it was, but yeah, she transformed her stepfather's muscle car into the new Iron Suit.
No, that was cool. Absolutely. Well, Lord Deathman, magic and technology mixed together. Um, Mephisto. And we had Iron Man before going through wormholes, maybe to another dimension. Is it all connected to Doctor Doom?
It might be, I think.
Oh, don't
Um,
forget we get Vision Quest with Ultron returning, which is also in the mix. So it's actually quite an interesting setup they have.
yeah, it is. And I think if this show is guilty of anything, I think on the critical side, it's the fact that it is suffering from a lot of pacing issues. If this were actual comic book storytelling, this probably could have been like 6 months worth of story that they just unfurled in 3 episodes that happened in one night. So I think a little spacing could have kind of helped us because there's so many great ideas, I think, and so many interesting kind of new ideas. The blend of magic and science, I honestly didn't think it was going to work. My first 3 episodes, in terms of the critique there, was really that there was a lot of hand wavy kind of pseudo sciencey things. And again, I'm getting that this is all fantasy. I'm not expecting any of this stuff to happen in real life, but they were really playing fast and loose with even rules that they were establishing. But now it kind of all made sense when I saw the back half and how they were going to try to marry the technology part to magic. I was like, okay, they're much more leaning towards a fantasy side of this than any kind of speculative science fiction side, which is what Tony Stark was more about. Like, I've got a brand new scientific element that's going to power my arc reactor, but Riri's version of powered armor isn't quite right. They're just picking a different kind of tone for it, which I did appreciate. But yeah, like once you kind of get past all these kind of crazy events happening every 5 seconds in the series, like she steals a fragment of the cloak's hood, investigates it, finds out that it's this incredible energy source. Then you have Ezekiel Stain, who gets arrested, released, transformed into a bionic guy. Then you have the rest of the crew. Kind of, there's a big fight at White Castle. There's kind of a lot to take in, and I watched all 3 of these episodes at once, and I was like, okay, you can't step away from your TV set for 30 seconds without probably having missed substantial story that was going on. But all throughout it, I really found myself just liking the character of Riri, and I really do think that she has a place in the MCU. And I hope to see her again in the future. I kind of like the character. I like her retinue, the characters that are around her. I like her interpersonal relationships with her family and friends. I love the way they all kind of pitched in to kind of turn the car into her new futuristic magic infused armor. I was pretty cool with the idea that she makes this deal with Mephisto. I have a problem with Sasha Baron Cohen, probably just like everybody else does. It's because he's just a really weird dude. Like watching him in Borat or Ali G, or he just comes off as like odd. Right? Like, but the thing is, it's like to add to the oddness, he's actually a great dramatic actor. And you're like, what? Like, how is this happening? How could this dude who, like, ran game on Rudolph Giuliani, in a comedy, is now like doing pretty solid, I'm not saying Oscar worthy, but pretty solid dramatic work. It's just the dude is just filled with so many contradictions. I get it. There's a part of your brain that this has dissonance watching him, vacillate through these different, aspects of his personality. But I actually think and I know this is going to be like a minority opinion, but I thought they kind of nailed the finale. I kind of like the action there. Again, outside of the pacing, I thought that the confrontation, resolving why the Hood is really doing what he's doing, wrapping up the emotional journey for Riri, the deal with the devil, leaving the door open for these kinds of future stories that could happen. I thought all of that worked fairly well. And again, not top tier MCU, but again, if you are a diehard fan and you were kind of looking for the next chapter, this is great. I don't think it's essential, even with all this clamor for Mephisto that for years everybody's been waiting for Mephisto to show up. We were kind of waiting for him to show up in WandaVision, which was a long time ago. He didn't show up there, and then it just became like they owe us Mephisto, right? So like when we got the paycheck for Mephisto, I felt like it was so overdue. I'm just going to put that in my savings account, and I'm not going to worry too much about it. So yeah, like I said, if you really just don't have the time, you could put this on the back burner, and catch it at another time. I don't think you would have missed a whole lot if you don't check in with Ironheart. But if you are diehard and you want to see Mephisto's debut and you want to see someone make a deal with the devil in the Marvel universe, then hey, jump into these 6 episodes. I think we all kind of know the idea of Mephisto. So again, not necessarily essential, especially because you don't really, it's an introduction, but we don't get to see him kind of like in like the physicality of what the character can be. He doesn't shift form. There isn't like, a whole lot of direct intervention that he does in the characters. He's much more a Faustian figure. If I can get a little nerdy there, but yeah. So I'm neutral to positive on this show. I think again a lot of surprisingly great ideas that are really undermined by a weirdly rushed pacing that should have just been like, let's make more episodes, let's make them at a lower budget, and let's try to unfurl this story and at a pace that feels like we have respect for the characters and want to give them some breathing room in terms of the developments of the story.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Well, Merv, you missed our first show on Ironheart, episode 1, 2, 3. So I will just let you ramble on about 6 episodes of Ironheart for a while. Go ahead.
I won't go too much into the first 3 because they're mostly just set up for these final 3. But I will say that whenever I watched these episodes, whenever they initially came out, like over a week ago, and my initial reaction was a lot like Taylor's, which was basically like, what the fudge? that I just watched because I was expecting a certain heroic bounce back, and that never happened. So it caught me off guard that a Marvel superhero story wouldn't have like kind of a heroic champion ending, and would end on such an odd, kind of tragic moment, if you will. Um, However, I will say that the longer I've sat with it, the more I've appreciated it. I'm not going to go so far as to say that like, oh yeah, I'm super hyped about it now, but it went from like being like really really low on my list of things to rewatch to like I feel like I could rewatch this no problem and have an okay time with it and maybe see some things I didn't see the first time. So it's not like in my head She-Hulk levels of like disappointment, but it's definitely a mixed bag. I'll just put it that way. Some positives. Just start with this. I don't mind Sacha Baron Cohen at all. I thought he was really good here, and just in general, I don't have like a strong opinion one way or the other as far as him as an actor. Um, I don't know that I've seen him in anything like outside of his comedy roles, so I can understand where like there's like a line in your head of like he's a comedic actor and this just doesn't feel right. But that's not for me. Like I didn't mind him here at all. I actually thought his portrayal of Mephisto was one of my favorite parts of this show coming out of it. uh, Riri as a character is very interesting, but I had a really hard time like empathizing with her. It's easy to empathize or understand like where she comes from as far as like wanting to protect her family, especially with the trauma she goes through and stuff like that. But it just seems like every step she took didn't go towards like it just felt like everyone she never learned from the previous one. Like she would make a wrong choice that would get her in some kind of a trouble, like getting kicked out of MIT, and then she goes home and instead of like taking that life lesson, one, she steals her stuff. I know they threw the line in where it's like, oh, it's her grant or whatever. Then why'd she sneak out with it? Because it's not her stuff. She stole it. So she goes back home with it, which is fine. It's whatever. But she goes back home and she joins a criminal gang that robs people and blackmails them and eventually murders some. And it's like, well, yeah, and that wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like we were pretending that we didn't do that. The Hood told her straight up, this is what we are. We do this. We're not out here genociding nations or anything. It's not the most evil you can be, but it's definitely on the spectrum of unlawful and not great. So like and then you get to the end where she they don't show it. So technically it's a cliffhanger. You just see her arms start to move towards Mephisto's, and then you see this thing which may or may not be reality, which is that Natalie is alive. So maybe they were playing with even some stuff, and that's the problem with cliffhangers is because you've shown me all this, I'm immediately going to think, well, all this is true, and then episode 7 could just immediately show that this was all an illusion and this was Mephisto trying to manipulate her. Okay, fine, but until that happens, I'm going to assume that all this happened and that she sold her soul to Mephisto for real life Natalie back, whether she meant to or not. So it's just like get kicked out of school, join a criminal gang, sell your soul. It's just like progressively the worst decision you can make in any given situation. So I had a really hard time empathizing with Riri, despite like the actress was fantastic. And the character's interesting, but it's just like I'm not like rooting for Riri. I'm rooting for Riri to get arrested and go to jail for her own good. You know what I mean? Like that's where my head was at with that character. But it's hard to separate the kind of meta aspect of it, where like I know that there were issues and that this has been on a back burner for like a couple of years as far as Marvel release schedule goes, and I know that a lot of people didn't like it, so it's not a critical hit or anything like that. So part of me doesn't expect to ever see the conclusion to this story, which this whole season, these 6 episodes really sets up. And that just adds to the disappointment of like, I don't know that we'll ever see the other side of this. What happens to Riri? What happens to Ironheart? What's the implication after this? And that's kind of, it's hard not to let that disappointment set in while you're, whenever the credits roll in that final episode. So it's really hard to like separate the fact that like this is going to be possibly the end of the line. I'm not saying they won't do anything with her, but as of right now, I'd be surprised if they let her feature her own film or anything like that, which sucks. Loved the character of Natalie. Yeah, Natalie. I was shaky initially. I was like, I don't know if it's going to work. Turned out to be like my favorite character in the series. Just a bright light, trying to guide Riri's path, and it never worked. Velma, who was the magic shop daughter with the cap and the glasses, I thought she was perfectly quirky, and I really loved the introduction of magic in that episode. It was a lot. It was all kind of crammed together. But I really liked the magic tech aspect to this show when all things are said and done. I already mentioned I liked Mephisto. Visually, like just from a production standpoint, this show looked great. I feel like there's a lot of shows that have come out in the past for Disney Plus and Marvel and stuff that you're like, I don't know, they could do better than that. I thought visually everything looked fine, even if like some of the decisions behind stuff was, questionable or it didn't really land for me. Like I thought everything looked extremely polished and very well done for as much CGI and stuff like that were in this show. I thought everything looked really good, and it's got a great soundtrack. Especially in the earlier episodes, but even in like 4, 5, 6, like the song choices and where they're placed in the scenes and all that stuff. And there's like a couple of montages throughout the 6 episodes. Every song that they chose, like I thought worked, and it stood out as good to me as I was watching it. So that's great. As far as a couple of negatives, the heist crew, they were just bad. They were just bad overall. And for a couple of different reasons, but like they were just really, really corny. Outside of the Hood and his cousin in the first couple episodes, whenever he was still around, but like the muscle of the group. Okay, flash forward to the what's the restaurant, the burger joint, White Castle. Sorry, I don't go there. Yeah, the White Castle fight. The muscle of the group, which is, they've been shown to be kicking everyone around for the last 4 or 5 episodes. They can't beat up an unarmed teenage girl who, that's not her specialty, is fighting. This is your specialty. And it just like, it's baffled me a little bit. And it's like, you can't even live up to your own, like, okay, I'm willing to accept that these small girls can beat up all these security guards and cops and whoever. Okay, I'll accept that. But I can't accept it whenever it's a bridge too far for me in that fight. And that fight was full of weirdness that didn't really work all around. It's just the crew turning their backs on her so quickly, not asking any questions until it was too late, and then just disappearing from the story altogether instead of like, I don't know. It was, 1 second it's just like, hey, Riri did wrong, and the next second it's like, okay, well, let's go kill her, because we've liked her for the last couple of days and we consider her part of our family, but let's go kill her, and then immediately gets mad whenever like the Hood fires them, and it's like, I thought we were a family. Like, I didn't like that at all. And I guess just overall the action sequences in episode 5 and episode 6 especially didn't really work for me. I thought especially the ones between Riri and Zeke, and then Riri and the Hood, I thought they were really quick, and it was just like, it just felt like you're going through the motions just to get her to the end of the story where we can have the interview with Mephisto, which is fine because that was a good part, but like there was nothing like super special about those 2 fight scenes for me. I was expecting a little bit more, especially in the Zeke one, which they kind of leave that on another cliffhanger of like, you'll see me again, and then we'll resolve this. And there's just too many cliffhangers by the end of this series that I don't expect. And one other odd problem I had, Riri solves her trauma problem like pretty quickly. She figured out how to create a device that at the sound of a gunshot creates a shield around a protective shield around you. Obviously, thematically, because of the situation with her best friend and her stepfather, okay, that makes sense. Why aren't you selling this to Stark Tech or something to mass produce so that every household, or fine tuning it so that it doesn't go off at the sound of a gunshot on TV, but it actually has to be like a real gunshot from, I don't know, give it a range. The technology has to be there in this world. Why aren't you doing that? Like, I know that's a less interesting show than this, just showing her just working in a lab station, but like that, if your whole drive is I want to be able to protect people, especially the people I love, you've already done it. Like you've had an invention that is better than a bulletproof vest. It stops the bullet in midair, like 10 feet away from them. You sell that. You know what I mean? Mass produce that. Like, forget about this suit. What's the suit gonna like? You've already built the solution to your problem. So, and I know like Riri's brain is all messed up because of trauma, and she's obsessive. She's like, to use like a D&D term, or like even a gaming term, she's a high intelligence, low wisdom character in this. And it's just, there's so many situations throughout these 6 episodes where you get frustrated because she's your main character and she's making poor choices. So that's really all I mean by the bad taste. Well, the bad taste is really like the fact that I don't know that we'll see follow up to this. This feels like there's too much stuff unsolved. There's a lot of stuff they did solve, but there's just too many unanswered questions, and I don't know that we'll ever get the answers to them, and that's just disappointing.
Yeah.
But overall, not as big a turd as my initial reaction was once I sat on it a little bit and saw it as less of a heroic journey and more of like a tragedy for this character. And until we get the upswing of I'm a hero now, that's what it's going to be. Riri's a tragic character.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you certainly rambled. Or Deathman, you had a follow up.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. One, I agree with Merv 100% about the gang. Terrible. It was just painful to watch these kids kind of cosplay as gangsters throughout this entire series, where they're just kind of following orders, and one day they're being asked to embrace this person and the next day they're being asked to like assassinate her ruthlessly. But I will say that on the heist team, I had a soft spot for the character. I think her name is Clown, and I just thought that it was just a pretty cool performance. That she was like, I don't have a lot of great stuff to work with, but I think that she managed to do the best that she could with it. The White Castle fight, which I had no feelings for one way or the other, very neutral on it. There's a moment where she's kind of looking in at the window and she looking in from outside the restaurant in, and she looked really creepy. And I was like, she did this whole bug eyes thing, and I was like, all right, that's somebody really putting in a performance so that they can be remembered in this show for their next assignment. And I didn't want to be petty, but since Merv mentioned it, that bulletproof bubble thing bothered the crap out of me too. I was like, really? You've got this kind of tech, and it's like going nowhere. You're not selling it to anyone. It's not incorporated into the Ironheart suit itself. I'm like, this is what I mean by fast and loose and kind of timey-wimey with how they were handling the technology. On the one hand, you have these incredible innovations that in and of themselves could have been like, wow, you can do that. You could have had this Fortune 500 company overnight that you were trying to rip people off to build on its own. But I was like, you know what? I would save that. But since Merv brought it up, I feel, I found a kindred spirit there.
Fair enough. Well, I think we have unpacked Ironheart long enough. And that leaves us with nothing else to do but rate Ironheart episode 4, 5, and 6, and maybe the whole show. And I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Lord Deathman. Can I have your rating for Ironheart?
Wow, this is going to be difficult for me, guys, and I would appreciate you giving me a moment. It's so hard with this show. It's not a bad show. It just has some bad elements in a stew that kind of leave a little bit of an aftertaste. I'm going to give this show, the whole show overall, and I'm not grading episodes individually, 6.5. 6.5.
Okay. Loki's mom?
Um, one quick shout out to the actor who played the Hood's father. He was just very. Whew, he had a lot of Gus Fring going on in him. If you're familiar with that character, but I'm going to rate myself a 4 for not reading my emails and missing the last episode. But I look forward to watching it. I'm going to give the overall series a 7.
Okay. Merv?
Right down the middle. I'm gonna go 5 out of 10. Um, it just because I feel like for me, like the positives and the negatives really do kind of balance out to make this like, oh, this moment I'm into it, and that moment I'm totally taken out of it. So for right now, until we see the next part of Riri's story, it's a 5 out of 10. Oh, my power might go off.
5 out of 10 it is. Um, Taylor?
For the record, this show was filmed in 2022 and has been sitting on a shelf for 3 years, and it doesn't even have an ending. And I don't think we're going to get a wrap up anytime soon. So, given all that, I'll give the show a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. I'm gonna go a 6 out of 10. It was kind of middle of the road. It wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't great either. So I'm 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. That's enough for me. That will conclude this review of Champions for episodes 4, 5, and 6, and the total show of Ironheart. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out, like and share this review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, join our forum at sakar.freeforums.net. We would love it if you do that. Our Superman review is also up this weekend, and soon we will be reviewing the Fantastic Four First Steps. So, and of course, Star Trek Project episodes and MCU Infinity Saga episodes. So there's a lot to come on the channel. For now, I want to thank you all also on behalf of our other champions and wish your hearts to be made of gold. Bye.